Welcome to This Week from the Principal's Desk, a podcast about Lutheran schools and their leadership. This podcast is hosted by two Lutheran school leaders. My name is Rob Lunak, and I'm the superintendent of Lutheran neighborhood schools in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And my co-host is Mike Sheeman.
My name is Mike Sheeman, and I'm the principal at Bethany Lutheran School in Parma, Ohio. And today, Rob and I are going to talk about a topic that I know sometimes gets relegated to the first week of May. We're going to talk about teacher appreciation, and I know that that is formally Teacher Appreciation Week. But as we record this podcast, it's September. So the school year just started, and we thought this would be a good time to actually talk about teacher appreciation because it's something that does not need to be confined by dates. It's something that can transcend dates to be able to help build culture, help speak into the great things that your teachers do on a daily basis that really help boost them up and build their confidence as they move forward in teaching. So we're going to talk about some theory around teacher appreciation and then give some practical ideas that you might be able to implement in your schools as well. So Rob, you do such a great job kicking us off every week. So here it is. I'm going to punt to you to say, get us going.
Well, thank you for that appreciation, Mike.
You're so welcome.
This is one of those areas that I think the business world is leaps and bounds ahead of us as schools, because so much of the business world is based around high-performing teams and making sure people feel supported and equipped and recognized to continue to do the good work that they're doing, because recognizing and appreciating people is not an end. It is a means to an end. You do that, one, because it's the right thing to do, and two, because that helps people perform at their absolute best. It is not a checkbox on a form. I appreciated teachers today. Check. I'm done. I don't have to appreciate them again for a while. Or I sent out gift cards the first week of May. Check. They should feel appreciated. I don't know why they're so upset. I appreciated you one time, remember? It's less about that, and it's more about it helps them be the best versions of themselves, because people who feel recognized and excited and love their work will do that work better. And it is your job, one of your jobs as principal, of which there are many, you know that, to make sure that your teachers feel seen and recognized and loved so they can then pour that out into students, right? We always talk about how you can't pour from an empty cup. Well, part of your job is filling up your teachers' cups through appreciating them. That is one way to do it. It is not the only way. There are many other ways you'll have to do that, but it's the one we're going to focus on today.
Exactly. And I think you're right that the business world is ahead of us, but there's no reason for them to be, because I think we can do a great job. We also want to recognize that our teachers, we talk a lot about comparing the salary to business. We know that they're not making what other maybe public schools make or things like that, and they're happy to do that. The teachers that I serve with are here sacrificially, but it's not a burden for them. But when we're able to appreciate them, we're able to take that to another level and say, we recognize this, we understand what you're doing, you've responded to a call, and we're here for you. But I would argue that people definitely, they want to feel appreciated. It's a need that they have. And one of the ways that you can do that is by, as you get to know your people, get to know what individual appreciation looks like for each of your staff members. I really think that the love languages does a good job of giving us a construct for this. If you were able to sit down with a staff list, could you go through it and identify what are your teachers' love languages? Is it words of affirmation? Because some teachers thrive on that, where others are like, hey, you can tell me to do a good job all day long. It doesn't matter, because maybe their love language is it's gifts or acts of service or quality time, one of the other ones. But if you can know what the love language is, I think you can better support, better appreciate your teachers. So you can link some of the resources that are in other places to this concept as well. It's also important to know some people like public affirmation and some people hate public affirmation. Our Lutheran humility is sometimes on full display in many ways. But the bottom line is people want to be appreciated. And I would say it's most effective when you can do it in a way that's meaningful to them.
Yeah, that's really important. And recognize that the way they recognize others is not necessarily the way they want to be recognized. For example, I am a gift giver. If you know me, you've probably gotten a gift from me. It's something I do. That's the way I show my appreciation and my affection for people. But I don't like to receive gifts. I'd rather people just spend time with me. right? So just because they like to receive that appreciation one way doesn't mean that's the way they want to give that appreciation and vice versa. But that comes down to knowing your people and knowing that about them. Now, how do you get to know your people? You have to spend time with them. That's the only way that happens. Yes, if you're new to a building or maybe you've been there a while and you've picked some things up, maybe there's a bio you can read. That's only scratching the surface of the people you're working with. And so you need to know them as individuals and even know what's going on in their lives day to day. And some of that comes up if you meet for devotions in the morning. And if you're a school that isn't meeting for devotions in the morning, I don't know that there are many. I think most do. But if you're in a place that doesn't, I would recommend that you add that time in just because that 5 minutes together in the morning does so much for building community and getting to know everybody, that little bit of social time. Now, Mike, you do this really well. You are in classrooms a lot. And I know from other podcasts, you walk around and you take little notes and you send people emails kind of right when you leave the room. You're on your phone typing that up as you're in there. So tell us about how that helps you build that relationship with your teachers.
Sure. I think simply being present in a room shows the teacher that you care about them. You're not distant from them, and you can start to relate better to the circumstances that they're going through. That really builds some traction with the teachers, because when they come and say, I'm struggling with this student, or I'm not sure exactly how this lesson is going to go or how it went, could you give me feedback? You're showing them that you're in the trenches with them. And I think that's one of the best ways that you can appreciate somebody, is to understand them. I'll never forget one teacher, and this meant a lot to me. I was giving a tour at school, and I went by the kindergarten classroom, and I was saying to the people in my tour, oh, this teacher is fantastic. Your kid's going to love her. This week, they've already done some Apple stuff in fall, and they did this lesson, and they're learning about this. And I gave a whole view of the classroom. Well, the teacher came and found me later that day and said she overheard that, and how impressed she was that I knew exactly what was going on in the classroom, that meant a lot to her. So that was kind of her, maybe a love language, but it was something to say, I understand, I get what you're going through. And so any way that you can do that, that you can show the teachers that you really care, and being present is a big way to do that. And other ways, it's really important. Get to know them, get to know their classrooms, and just be there. Sometimes showing appreciation can simply be, hey, I was in your classroom today and I noticed a light bulb was out, so the facilities guy's coming after school to replace your light. Cool. That can be a really functional way to show appreciation. But be there with them, know what's going on in the classroom, and support and help them. Rob, I know you are really big on team building. I think there's a lot of things that you could speak to in that regard, because sometimes there's the positive aspects of team building, and there are people that absolutely hate it. So how do you navigate that in the realm of appreciation?
That's a good question. So much of what you're trying to build is you're not being the only person appreciating someone. You want to build a culture where people are recognized and where people freely share the good things that they're seeing. It makes people more open to feedback. It helps people grow, and it really creates a warm, loving work environment, which is what we want. We want our Lutheran schools to be the best place on earth to have a job, right? Because it's a calling. It's your vocation. You should love what you're doing, and we need to build that environment sometimes. And that comes down to making that environment one where the teachers know, respect, and love each other. And it's not just the principal telling everybody good job or, hey, I really liked that lesson on apples. It's everybody else recognizing that good work in them. And that only happens intentionally. And that means team building. And now people hear team building, and some people go, I don't want to do team building. I don't want to do a trust fall and tell you what my favorite Looney Tunes character is. There are good ways to do team building. There are some bad ways to do team building. And the ways you do team building are not going to work for everybody at every time. So this is an audio-only podcast, but Mike is holding up the little Martian guy from Looney Tunes. Marv the Martian? Marvin the Martian. Guy. There we go. Yeah. So favorite guy.
But I wouldn't do this in team building, but I'm doing it in a podcast for fun.
There we go. So now we know Mike's. The little things like that, they add color and they add depth, and you get to know more and more about people and form those connections because you have good relationships with the people you spend time with, just naturally. In schools, that's harder because a lot of the time we don't spend time together. We're on these little islands, right? We have devotions together. We see each other for chapel. Maybe we have a lunch that's together or we're out together for recess. But a lot of the time, you're alone. And so we need to add depth and color to those relationships so somebody can go, hey, you're wearing purple today. You know, that's my favorite color too. I remember it's your favorite color from our team building thing. Or, hey, I know you love hockey and I know hockey season is coming up. There's a Blackhawks Blues preseason game on the 28th. Do you want to get together and watch that game? Or maybe you just talk to somebody about the next morning. Hey, did you see the game yesterday? I know you're a big fan. Little things like that that just add those connections. It's just like the classroom you have with your students. If you know them, you know that you're going to be able to best serve them. The same is true with teachers and the same is true with coworkers. And so some of the things we've done a survey, hey, answer these 10 questions, and then we played a game. And I don't know if everybody's teachers are really competitive, but most of the ones I know have been pretty competitive. And so we played a game. Hey, can you tell me whose favorite vacation spot is Key West in Florida? And people had to guess, and you got points. And people, they were really into it. We played everybody's favorite song, and that's a great one, asking for their favorite song and then making a playlist for that on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever. And then as people are trickling in for a staff meeting, those songs are playing. People really like that one. And some of them surprise people. They're like, wait, whose favorite song is this, right? People really like that. Little things that just add that humanity to the school day, because that is so important. Your teachers are people. They are not robots. I don't know if there's anybody out there who doesn't already know that, but sometimes we forget that they have hopes and dreams and fears and struggles just like everything else. And being able to recognize those definitely goes a long way. But it's not just about that team building. It's about where you're going to spend your resources, right? Mike, why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, actually, before I do, you triggered something for me too that was a practice one of my teachers implemented, and I loved it. Where at about August 1st, she emailed all the staff, including the new staff members, and said, would you all send me 3 or 4 pictures of what you did over summer? And she compiled a video of everybody's summer experiences, and she started our back to school staff meeting by showing the video, and it was really cool. One teacher used that video to share with the staff that she and her husband were expecting another child because the end had the picture at the end. So I thought that was really kind of cool. It was a neat way, a neat thing that a teacher took the lead to do. But you're right. Some of this appreciation, it's free, and that's the best ever. However, if you're able, I would encourage you to take a look at your budget and see about throwing some money in your budget. So we've done that here where I am. I have a teacher appreciation line in the budget, and we use that for various things. But it gives me some leeway. So just recently, there was a podcast that was done or a Zoom meeting by one of the CEOs at Chick-fil-A, and our staff watched that together. Well, what I did for that meeting is I brought in Chick-fil-A for them, and I used my teacher appreciation line to provide them all dinner. So we were watching Mr. Chicken while we were eating his product. It was great. Just a kind of tiny little thing, but it was fun for them to do that. One of the other things budget-wise that we do here, our school board meets monthly, and we highlight teachers I highlight teachers every single month in the school board meeting for something out of the ordinary that they did above and beyond. And the school board writes them cards and throws a $25 Amazon gift card in there, and the teachers are given that to show appreciation. So there's things that you can do with money to spread the wealth, but I would encourage you to take a look at your budget, because your teachers are worth investing in. Now, you don't want to put so much in there where you're going, the teachers would be like, hey, I'd rather have you sprinkle that through and up my salary. That's a whole nother budgeting factor. But in this case, why not throw a few bucks at it? It doesn't go unnoticed by your teachers.
Yeah. And we talk about this a lot, that if we want to figure out what your priorities are, we'll look at your budget. It's one thing to talk about them. It's another thing to go, okay, here is what we are spending our time, our effort, and our money on. And as Mike said, it's not the only thing. And absolutely, don't put $200,000 in there and then pay your teachers peanuts. Don't do that. But you should have something in there, because it's nice to take people out to lunch at the beginning of the year. They really appreciate it. I would do that. I'd take everybody out our first meeting of the year and our last meeting of the year. I'd take everybody out for lunch. It's just a good kind of bookend, and people do recognize that and do appreciate that. Now, another thing that's free, praise. And this is huge, because what you praise is what you want repeated. And what you praise will get repeated, but you need to be specific. And what I mean by that is, if you tell somebody, "Hey, thank you." If you're in the Midwest, you hear that all the time about everything. Somebody held the door for you, somebody, I don't know, handed you a pen. You hear that all the time. So you need to be specific. So when you go to a teacher and you want to praise something, you need to use their name. "Hey, Sarah, I really love that lesson. The way you used fractions, it just lit it up for the kids, and it was a great job. It was really awesome." That means so much more than, "Hey, nice lesson." If you are going to do any praise, right? Don't skip it, but be as specific as possible, because it just means so much to people. And that's something that I think we forget about. Praise is not my default setting. I have to remind myself to do it, and I have to remind myself to be specific about it, because I personally don't need it. But that's where we get to love languages, like we talked about. What you need as a principal is not always what your teachers need. And what you would appreciate in recognition is not what they would always appreciate. So you got to know them, know that, and then praise them. Now, as Mike said, some people don't like being praised publicly. Some people, they get really embarrassed, right? They want to be so modest to, like, no, I'm just doing my job. Don't tell me that. But you could still go up to them privately and be like, "Hey, I know you don't like being praised in front of everybody, but I did want to let you know that I recognize this, and this was a really cool thing. And you just, yeah, I wanted to tell you that you deserve to hear that," right? That is so, so important. Now, one of the things I want to talk about before we move on here is, when a project comes together, you as principal should be the last person to take credit. And I would argue that a lot of the time you should just be giving it. If somebody wants to give it back to you, cool. But you should never stand up in front of anybody and go, "I just want to say that I finished this thing, and wasn't it so great?" Don't do that. Don't do that. Anytime I had an opportunity to talk to a group of parents, whether that was praying before a band concert, or talking to somebody at Carline, or meeting people at the bus after a field trip, the very first thing I would say is, "Hey, this teacher did such a great job. What a cool thing that they got to do." And I'm always giving out that praise to anybody else, because you as principal are important in your building, but the teachers are more important. Your building can operate for a long time without you in it. I promise you. It can't operate for very long without a teacher. You ever have a third grade teacher not show up during the day? What a nightmare that would be. You as principal ever miss something because you had a meeting? Everyone survived, right? So that's you just got to recognize your role and your place, and recognize where your value and your worth is.
Yeah, exactly. Those are some definitely important things to be considering, because the other thing that does is, as you praise people, I think it helps them to reveal where their gifts lie. And in some ways, just a simple act of giving praise can really encourage somebody in a particular way. And we know that great leaders develop other leaders, and so you could be doing that. You could be developing somebody, or highlighting their areas of giftedness that may even boost them into another position. And that's great. I know sometimes it's hard, where it's like, "Well, I don't want to lose this person because they're great. I don't want them to go to another job." Maybe that's what God has in store for their calling. So you might be doing more by the act of praising and giving credit than you even realize. You likely are a part of God's plan for that person. So continue to do that, encourage, and as you see their gifts in certain areas, feel free to offer experiences that for them to build those things. Maybe you have a teacher who you think should be going through the SLED program. Maybe they're a great candidate for that, and your views on them have brought that to the surface. Or there's other things you can do to make them leaders in the building. So those are kind of side effects of the praise that you give. You don't give praise for that reason, but it certainly is something that could creep to the top. So just lots of things to consider there. I kind of like the rest of our show notes, because it's like practical. Here's some ideas that Rob's done. Here's some things that I've done that I would love to be able to share, and then ask for you to share back in the show notes. What are some real practical things that have worked for you in the area of appreciation? Rob, there's even a story on here. I'm looking forward to this hot chocolate story. So I'm going to punt it back to you.
Okay. One of the things before we get in there, though, one of the most powerful things you can do that Mike is talking about here is seeing potential in people.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to somebody and say, "Hey, you're doing this thing great, but I know that there's more, and I see that potential in you, that you'd be great at this or this thing or this thing. Have you thought about that?" That that seeing growth in people and seeing an opportunity or a horizon for them that is higher than the one they can see is just so powerful. So I would definitely encourage that. As you said, you hate to lose people, but you're not losing people. The kingdom is gaining people.
Exactly.
That's a good way to think about it. Okay, practical ideas. Notes and thank you cards. I carry around index cards with me and I will write little things on them and I will drop them on teachers' desks. If you are in a teacher's room observing and you see something awesome, take a little post-it note off their desk, write something on it, make sure they see you stick it on their desk and leave. Don't say anything. You know what the teacher's going to do the second you leave the room? They're going to run over to that little post-it note and they're going to see that, and that's going to mean so much to them. Keep track of birthdays. Put them in your phone, put them in a calendar. This is really easy nowadays. And just text somebody, hey, happy birthday. I still do this with teachers that I taught with years and years and years ago. I keep them in there and I will text them in the morning, hey, happy birthday. Just thinking of you. Hope your year's going well. Keeping favorite snacks or school appropriate beverages on hand. You got to get that list. I had a teacher who loves zebra cakes. And so if he was having a bad day, I'd bring him a zebra cake. Hey, I know this was a little bit of a struggle, but I have zebra cakes today. You'd be surprised how much Little Debbie can brighten a day.
Right. I actually too, Rob, before you go on there, I'm going to want you to continue with this list, but you said keep track of their birthdays. The other thing that I kept track of, I had a number of teachers that had tragic events take place in their life. And so I would put that in my calendar. I had a teacher who fairly suddenly lost a sibling, and it was something that was really difficult for her, as it would be for anybody. And so I made that an annual appointment in my calendar, or an annual thing. And I happened to know that there was a specific food that reminded her of her sibling, and so I made sure that on that particular day it was always delivered to her. So there's things even beyond birthdays that I think you can do on special or difficult days for your staff. So just wanted to add that in and keep on going.
No, that's definitely a good one because it comes down to knowing your teachers, right? That's a great example. Yep. Okay, hot chocolate story. I started something when I was in Janesville that we had a coffee hour for parents at drop off, right? And then I guess they used to do it, but parents hung out too long, so they got rid of it because they didn't want parents hanging out. And I'm like, no, I want them hanging out. I want them in the building as long as humanly possible. So we had coffee in the morning, and I had 7th and 8th graders serve the coffee to parents. And I told the teachers, I'm like, if you want coffee delivered to your room, let me know, and I'll make sure we make some up and deliver it to you. And I had a teacher go, well, I only like hot chocolate. Okay, fine. I'll deliver you a hot chocolate, but I only like it if there's 2 packets in it. Okay, fine. I'll do that. So every Friday morning, I would take like coffee and hot chocolate orders and devotions, and I'd go talk to parents and meet with them as they were drinking their coffee and talk to the kids as they were serving coffee. And then I'd make up like a bunch of to-go cups and walk around and like hand deliver them at like 8:15 or 8:30. And that just like brightened people's day, especially when you brought them something that they didn't get the chance to ask you for and you remembered how they wanted it, right? So that teacher who wanted the double packets of hot chocolate mix wasn't at the devotions one morning. She had something going on, and I come in at 8:30 with a cup, and she looks at me, and I'm like, 2 packets. 2 packets. And the smile on her face, because I remembered, and I had that I filed away. Your teachers know that you're busy. So anything that you can point out, hey, I do remember these things about you. Hey, I do care about you, even when you're not telling me these things. That just goes so far to showing them the strength of that relationship and the strength of your care for them.
Yeah, that's a great story, and you're right. One of the notes that I had on my phone was all the teachers' drink orders, and periodically throughout the year, I would just disappear in the middle of the day, and I knew that my entire primary staff enjoyed unsweet iced tea from McDonald's, and so they would see me walk in with a McDonald's drink carrier, and oh, it just kind of gives you that smile that you can do something nice for them. I would also have you consider how you do your staff meetings, because once in a while you can bring a lot of appreciation into a staff meeting. Staff expect, I would say for the most part, staff expect a long, dry agenda. Okay, we're going to talk about when the next fire drill is. We're going to talk about our NLSA breakdown. Or we're going to talk about, NLSA is exciting, don't get me wrong. But when you're talking about the committees and doing all the work, or, stuff that, could the principal just emailed me this instead of having to discuss it at a meeting, all those things. If you can take their expectations and flip it sometimes, it's kind of fun. They'll walk into a staff meeting and say, you know what, today we're just going to play a game together. We're just going to hang out together. We're just going to talk stories together, or just maybe you have a whole spread ready for them and it's just a matter of, hey, well, welcome to social hour. The other thing that I do with staff meetings, though, that the staff have appreciated, is that I set a firm end time. So we know that we have staff meetings every Tuesday after school, but they know that 4:30 is our end time. Half the time, we could go longer than 4:30, but I'm going to respect them and their family time, and what they can make appointments, they can do whatever. No matter what, we're done at 4:30. So some structure around staff meetings can show that you care for your staff. So have a little fun with staff meetings. I'd encourage you to say in the next month, find one staff meeting and do something unexpected. Now you have to decide what that is. You have to decide if it's free or can you fund it. But that would be my challenge to anyone listening that runs staff meetings. Throw them a curveball. They're going to love it. I promise.
Yeah, that's a great idea. We did a scavenger hunt. I just came up with like 15 things. Hey, take a picture of this thing. Here are your teams. Go. And people were driving around town and like taking pictures next to UPS trucks or UPS trucks or mailboxes, or here's a Wendy's sign, or here's the pizza place in town that everyone likes. And it was just something fun that got them out of the building. And I know people are going, well, that has nothing to do with your school. I'm like, well, no, it has everything to do with the relationships in our school. And it has everything to do with making sure people feel supported and loved and enjoy the work that they're doing. Because if teaching is a slog, that's not good for anybody. And teaching has its tough moments. And so we need to fill people back up through some of those fun things. Why do you think teachers' conferences have a social hour? Right? That's in there for a reason.
Yeah.
Now, Mike, you put something on here. I don't know if we've talked about this espresso machine. Have we talked about this espresso machine yet?
We haven't yet, but I'll tell you, that was one of the best things ever here at my school. My staff are caffeine addicts in the biggest way, and guilty as charged. I joined them in that. And what we did at the end of the year, the school board said, we really want to do something for the staff. Like let's get them all gift cards. And I said, we're kind of doing that already. I have an idea. What if we bought an espresso machine? Now these, like, not one of these cheap ones that you get at a local store, but I'm talking about with the coffee grinder and the mixer and the foamer and all the things. And rather than spending a little bit on everybody, they did one thing that had a huge impact. Now, I knew the staff were going to be thrilled to have an espresso machine. I also had an idea that it was way more than just about coffee, because we put it in the office. Now, guess where the staff typically don't show up in the day? In the office. Well, now they're all coming for their espresso, and the relationships, the conversations that are happening just as the result of the espresso machine are fantastic. So yes, I'm not going to lie, this thing cost me almost $1,000. It was okay, because I get my offices right in line with the espresso machine. So I get to see when the staff are popping in too, and I get to have more conversations. So out of the idea of let's do something for the staff, it was not about the espresso machine, but man, are we thankful for it. So you got to think too about the side benefits, the added benefits that your appreciation can provide. And as a principal, you can structure a lot more than just specific things. So think that through as my encouragement to people listening.
You're building a climate and a culture that people want to be a part of. And that means that your school day is fun and you have those little deviations every once in a while, and you have these things that recognize people. We had Texas Roadhouse deliver rolls one day. They're just like, hey, we were in the neighborhood, we were delivering rolls to all the schools, right? So they gave us like two styrofoam containers of rolls and their cinnamon butter. People love that stuff. And I'm like, okay, what should I do? So I got on the intercom. Teachers, there are fresh rolls from Texas Roadhouse. I only have enough for 2 people. First 2 people here get them. I had a 7th grade teacher sprint down the hall, make it up to the desk out of breath. And I'm like, oh, you're 3rd. I'm so sorry. But it was just a fun little moment. Like you ever see a 2nd grader like sprinting through the hall trying to get rolls for their teacher? They were all about it. It was definitely not traditional school, right? But that's okay. It was a fun thing. It was a memory, and it just showed that school can be this unique, special place as we all want it to be. Now, as you're listening to this, I'm sure there are plenty of other ideas out there, and we want to hear those. So you can leave a comment, you can send Mike an email, and we want to hear what are some of the fun things you're doing so other people can learn from those. It's not just you telling us, it's so everyone else can see it as well. Because that's the thing. We have this great network of people. We have this great cloud of witnesses, as Mike always says. And so if we can share that with as many people as possible and get your voice out there as well, we'd love to do that.
Absolutely. So I think that's a good spot maybe to wrap up. I think we've given a lot of things to process in this episode here. So if it's all right, Rob, why don't I close us off with prayer?
Absolutely.
All right. Heavenly Father, we thank you for all the gifts that you give us. Most importantly, we thank you for the gift of Jesus, and what a joy it is to be every day in a ministry where his name is proclaimed, and we can worship and praise him and teach the kids about all that he's done for us. One of the other gifts, God, that you give us are those that are on our staff. And we ask that you would give us eyes for appreciation for those people, as they are gifts from you. We know that the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few, but you continue to provide workers. So give us the strength and the wisdom to know how to best support and encourage them, as we know that where good things are happening, Satan also tries to attack and bring those things down. So guard us from those attacks, so that we can continue to thrive for the sake of the gospel, and that we can continue to carry out the mission that you've given us to be lights in the communities where we've been placed. Thank you for all those who serve in Christian schools around the world and who faithfully answer the call. I ask that you be with all those who are listening, and give them ideas and thoughts on how they can process this and apply it in their own context. We lift all of this up before you in Jesus' name. Amen.